This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I am your host, Steve Gould. Thank you for joining me. It's been a little bit. I took a little bit of a break. Just the way it goes. I started, if you're new to the podcast, if you don't know, I am in law enforcement. I'd taken a break and I'm back into it now. I'm an active police officer, so the schedule's kind of crazy, and I kind of have to take overtime and road work and stuff when it comes in. So scheduling with people can be kind of sticky, can be kind of tricky. Things get canceled. So there's been kind of a gap. A lot's been going on here. I have a little homestead. I have the dairy goats. I have the chickens, meat birds. I killed my first 4 chickens the other day, which was crazy and awesome and weird and all those things. So, yeah, well, I'm back now, and I have a fantastic guest. This is episode number 77. In the interim between these episodes, I got a sponsor for the next few episodes, Burley Boards. It's at Burley Boards on Instagram, at Burley_boards. And this guy contacted me. The owner's name is Dan. He said he's a huge fan of the show, huge fan of law enforcement, and he contacted me a couple months ago, and he's like, I'd love to do something for the show, love to make something for you, and it sounded awesome, but I didn't know what I wanted or what to do, and I said, hey, that's awesome, man. Let me think about it, and I felt kind of bad putting the guy to work, but he just really wanted to show his appreciation for the show and for law enforcement, so I ended up getting back to him, and he makes like countertops, cutting boards, custom wood pieces, all kinds of awesome stuff. And I said, what about like a big, like cutout of Massachusetts with the blue line through it? And he's like, absolutely, no problem. So Dan makes a thing. He sends it to me and it never gets here. He calls me like a couple weeks later and he's like, hey, did it show up? Because the tracking is like dead ended. I'm like, no, I never got it, man. And he's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So he calls FedEx. They lost it. He made this thing, went to all this trouble to make this thing for me, and they lost it. So let me put up a picture of a big dumb idiot holding it. There's, if you're on the YouTube channel, or you can go to the Facebook page, I put it up there too. There's me holding the piece. It's Massachusetts. It's beautiful. It's black with the blue line through it. Just a really cool wooden cutout. I want to figure out a way to get it on the wall here, and let me give him up here. Here's his Instagram. Go follow him. And if you have a custom thing you want made out of wood, Dan at Burley Boards is your man. It's BURLY_boards. So give him a follow, and thank you, sir. I love it. I truly appreciate it. Got to figure some way to mount it back here. I got corrected on my American flag also recently. They're telling me that this is hanging the wrong way vertically. The stars should be on the other side. But when I got to tell you, when I flip it around, all the stitching's on that side. So it's a very cheap flag. I don't know where it's made. I really hope it wasn't made in China. I don't know. I didn't look. But it can only be hung that way. So I appreciate the correction, but that's just the way it is. I can't. With this flag anyways, that's the only way it can hang vertically. Otherwise, it will be real ugly. Yeah, I'm thinking with the podcast, I might start doing seasons because of how hard it is to pump them out regularly, but just be patient with me. If you're a new listener, there's a backlog of 76 interviews behind this one. I take a lot of pride in compiling them. I don't take any credit for them because it's just the men and women of law enforcement that provide crazy real life stories, and people love them. People start listening, and I get emails all the time where they say, Steve, I started and I just binge listened to every single one, and then before you know it, they're on my case because I haven't produced enough. They want more of these stories from these guys and gals in law enforcement. So enjoy the back library. Know that I'm working on them. I have a bunch scheduled coming up. I had my guest right now. His name is Mark Kelly. I'm really lucky to get this guy. He worked for East Hartford, Connecticut Police Department for many, many years, started in 1991. He did patrol. He did vice. He did narcotics. He was on their emergency response team, which is equivalent to SWAT. And he was also on a federal drug task force, which sounds a lot like Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop 2. So we'll have to ask him about that. And he's written a book. It's called Front Row Seat. If you look it up on Amazon, it is actually crushing. It's doing really good. It's got 5 stars. It gets really good reviews. And I'm told this is not so much a crime novel, but a cop story, because this book was written with his knowledge of all these years of law enforcement. So it's very accurate and just super entertaining. So I'm very happy to have Mark Andrew Kelly on the show. Let me bring him on now. Mark, welcome to Things Police See. Thanks for coming on, brother. I'm sorry, buddy. There we go. I unmuted you. Thank you for coming on, my man.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah. Glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
Excellent. So, authoring a book after police work, is that something you always wanted to do? Or have you always been a creative writer? Or is this just something like you had so many insane experiences, you said, I got to get these out?
No, the only creative writing I ever did was on arrest warrants or search warrants. And that's a joke to any prosecutor, defense attorney out there. That's a joke.
Yeah.
No, the number of years ago, I've been retired now for 9 years. And the more videos come out of police encounters with citizens, of course, that reached apogee last spring, friends of mine, where they know me very well or they don't, or relatives, they say, why do cops do what they do? And I said, well, I can explain it to you real quick over a cup of coffee or a couple of beers, but I can't really get you into the training we do, why we act the way we do, because you're not there, and as much as I can go see a football game or baseball game and you can describe it, but you're not the guy on the field or the girl on the field. So
right.
It's, I tried to write the book so that the reader is there, kind of riding along with the characters. And the characters, the 3 main characters are a brand new rookie, female rookie, her field training officer, FTO, who's about 10, 11 years on a job and looking to get promoted. And then an old sergeant who's got 20 some odd years on the job, who's going to retire in the next 90 days and counting down his time. So it kind of gives my experiences through my 21 years through those characters and what I did. And it's mostly not so much investigative work, but how patrol works, how patrol reacts, what they see, what any given day can be like.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so cool. I love that you're giving all the details of patrol, because that is super interesting. Usually, a lot of things, they go for the big investigations, the murders and all that. And that's been done like so much in Hollywood and everywhere else. But the nuances of patrol and how PDs operate is largely a mystery to a lot of even just communities. Like, I work for a small community, and even to a small community, the police department's kind of like this clandestine operation. They're like, what are they doing? Like, what's their, why do they do what they do? Why do they act the way they act? Like you were saying. And so this book sounds fascinating. And, when someone asks you that question, when they ask you, why do you do it that way? Or why did they react that way? And to answer it appropriately, they're going to have to absorb so much information to really get the right answer, to understand why someone reacts in the moment like they would as a police officer. It's very frustrating for police officers because it's impossible to do without looking crazy. Like, let me stand on my soapbox for 3 hours when I explain to you this.
Right. And one of the first times my older brother, intelligent guy, very worldly, and I believe the video he was referencing goes back a number of years, but 2 patrol officers were sent out to a guy selling contraband out of his trunk. He was a large male. Turned out he was armed. One officer physically engages the suspect, and then the suspect either starts to disarm the officer or gets his own gun out. The second officer shoots the suspect dead. And my brother's like, well, why didn't they try to put a chokehold on? Why didn't they try and do this? And I go, you look at these guys, the guy's like in their 40s, and the guy they're trying to wrestle with is a monster.
Right.
If that was your best friend, Steve, wrestling with this guy, and the bad guy's going for his gun, you just got to sit there and wrestle with him. I mean, you can't go, oh, please don't do that, or whatever.
Right.
The trigger is tripped. The switch is tripped. You got to go full on. And part of my background is defensive tactics. I went through several different courses to be instructor for my PD. And try to, some of you always say are people who want to be cops or new cops. And a lot of times I would get these newer, gung-ho, fresh out of the academy officers for a couple of weeks of in-house training. And I would say, no, you did defensive tactics at the academy. I'm going to give you a little step up on that. It's going to be a little more physical maybe. And maybe you're surprised because you didn't get punched in the face. When has anybody here been punched in the face before? And to a person, none of them. When's the last time you got in a fight? And I mean a fight with your sister back when you're 6 years old. I mean a real knockdown, drag-out fight as an adult. And, my background in the Marine Corps is like every other weekend in Jacksonville, North Carolina, we're getting bar fights. But most of these kids nowadays don't get in bar fights, and they never had to get physical with somebody. And to this our culture's credit, most people don't have to, which is good. But I try to relate to them. It's only 1 or 2% of all the calls you go on where it's going to be physical, but you have to win. There's no second place. You have to win. So it's 1 or 2% of the calls. It's pretty much across the nation. Only 1 or 2% of calls get physical or violent. And it's kind of a wake up call. So we pad up. We do some wrestling. We had this one exercise called Fight for Life, and I would be in a total padded suit, and the trainees would have to punch me, hit me, kick me, baton me, all out, full strength, no sparring, no parrying. It was like full on for a full 60 seconds, and then handcuff me.
Exhausting. And
to a person, by about 30 seconds, they're gassed.
Sure.
And then I start yelling at them. I'm not tired yet. I'm high on crack. I'm bigger than you. I'm going to pound you into the dirt. I'm going to take your gun belt. And they got to keep on fighting for 30 seconds till the bell rings, and then they get me handcuffs. And to a person, they were all like, wow, because usually I was a few years older than them, and they're gassed. And these are kids some of them were, amateur boxers or wrestlers or that kind of thing. And it's like, you can pace yourself in that kind of engagement. If you're a runner, it's a different kind of thing to go full on for 60 seconds. And I picked 60 seconds because in our town, it's 3 by 5 square miles. And I figured if your backup is a mile away and has to go 60 miles an hour to get to you, it's going to be a minute by yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. And that's a different kind of conditioning. It's more of a mental conditioning than physical. It's a combination, obviously, but you have to know that you're going to be very uncomfortable and you have to keep on fighting through it. So, trying to, again, back to the original start of the conversation, trying to get people to understand, cops don't want to have to get in that 60-second confrontation. They want quick, lights out, done fast, because most officers are not, well, from my generation, Steven Seagal or Bruce Lee. Most of them are raising families. Most, once you get into your 40s, you start growing a gut. Most are not going out benching 320 pounds or doing 10-second sprints. They got a full life besides a PD. And you're just not going to get in that kind of a contest with somebody who's 18, 19, 25 years old and probably under the influence of some sort of pain-deadening narcotic. So,
yeah.
Again, people don't realize that either. You can hit somebody as hard as you want. Full baseball swing the baton to the thigh. They don't feel it. Been there. So, you got to tell people it's not what we see in the movies. It's nothing we see in the movies. It's not what we see on TV. It's even different than what we see on the shows like Cops. You're there. It's your bruises. It's you want to finish your shift every day, and you want your coworkers to finish their shift as well. So to try and get that mentality to make people understand that, they kind of go, yeah, okay, but why the cop have to get that extra punch in there? I go, well, again, you haven't been in a fight,
right?
The adrenaline's rolling. To flip that switch off is a discipline. And most of these people who are sitting around talking about the cops should do this, should not do that. It's like, well, tell you what, I'm 60 years old. I'll get in a ring with you for 60 seconds, and we'll just knock the crap out of each other and see how you feel. And I keep on going, and you can't. And, you get a 30 seconds, you want to stop, and I keep on going, and see how you feel about the cop shouldn't should have an automatic switch to turn things off real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard.
So,
That's tough. A lot has changed. Even since I got into law enforcement in the early 2000s, like I remember I used to work with a guy who said, was a year or two older than me, but his dad and my dad both were cops in the 70s and 80s. And I feel like these guys used to fight all the time. And his dad would always say, I can't wait till, he's kind of a hard ass, but he said, I can't wait till you get your ass kicked for the first time, talking to his son. And it never really happened. I feel like it's just like it was like there was enough police now, and there wasn't. It just seems like the advent of like the big bar fights and like the and that maybe it's changing now, in the cities, but it just didn't like we never really got our asses kicked, or no one. It was never really a one-on-one thing. It was always kind of like you're there with backup, and then you kind of give each other the look, and you're like. And then everybody's pig piles. You know what I mean? You just feel like, let's end it. Like you said, let's end it quick. Boom. Get on top of them. And get them packaged up.
Yeah, it's again getting back to civilians understanding. You send me a list of questions. Bizarre calls. It's like going through the mental Rolodex, pretty thick on bizarre calls. And again, you always remember the ones that excited you. It's not typical of your day, maybe, but. It is noted in my book, but this one character did 6 months in local jail, came out jacked up, loved his brandy, loved his coke, and his sole purpose one night was to tear apart the neighborhood bar. And I'm about half a block away doing paperwork, and I hear the whole thing spill out into the street. So I roll a cruise in the middle of the fight there, grab this one particular individual. He's cooperating. We knew each other from previous encounters. He had always cooperated with me. And then he picks me up. I weigh about, full uniform, all about 190 pounds, picked me up like a doll and slammed me to the ground.
Ooh.
And because at times, detention, it wasn't like who's going to get arrested. It's like, you stand over here, you stand over there, backup's on the way, we'll figure out.
What a betrayal of your past rapport.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so anyways, somebody in the bar calls dispatch and says, your cop's getting his ass kicked out here. And so there were already cops on the way, and then that got everybody coming. And my opponent was very, very jacked up, but he couldn't run. So he ran about 100 yards down the road, middle of the road, 4-lane road, and then ran out of gas. So I caught up to him and tried to tackle him. I couldn't move him. And then the backup got there, and we stood in the middle of this road, and we got tired. We were taking pinata swings at this guy with our PR-24s, hammering him. All the green areas that you're trained to do, hammering him.
Terrifying.
And we were getting tired. The cops are getting out of breath.
Oh my gosh.
Getting out of breath. And he just stood there like a statue and didn't move. And then somebody had the bright idea to back up one of the cruisers aside of him and flip open the door. And the guy got in from the opposite side of the cruiser from where my opponent was, grabbed him by the belt, and then while everybody else is doing haymakers out, I took a flying kick, hit him in the gut, bent him enough in half, and stuffed him inside the cruiser. Slammed the door shut.
Oh my gosh.
Go screaming, go screaming to the PD. And this was shortly after shift change.
So he's not cuffed. He's just like jammed into the back.
He's not cuffed. And at that time, this is back in early 90s. It was a big square Ford LTD police interceptors.
Yeah,
and
plenty of room.
We did not have bars on the windows. And he's kicking out the window. We was waiting for him to smash out between the 2 blocks from the fight happened to the PD. And so we finally get to the PD, and there's the evening shift leftovers there, and they're jacked up, ready to go. And this guy's not handcuffed yet. And, took a swarm to get him. And at that time, the PD was very old. It was through a back door, up some stairs, past a stairwell, into the cell block, and the old, Mayberry, bar type cell, cell block. So, and got him in there. And, I was worried. It was my arrest. And one cop got injured in the fight on the street. And I'm like, well, before I got off shift, and 7 o'clock, I got booked this guy, and pretty worried about it. So it was me and a couple other guys, we take him out of the cell, and the coke was worn off, the alcohol worn off, and he was docile as a child. And he said, I know what I did. And he actually gave me some kind of failed compliment for actually catching up to him and catching him. So he had no intention of giving up.
Sure.
But, we got him booked on that. And then the same character, a few months later, got into another fight. It wasn't my call, but whenever he was arrested, there was always a 2 or 3 officer escort into the building, into booking, into the cell block, just to ready to jump on him. He went nuts again. And there's an example where people say, well, a person's handcuffed, he's helpless. Quite the opposite. Again, this guy was about my size, 6 feet tall, beefier, and handcuffed. And the arresting officer in front of me asking him down the cell block to put him in a cell. And the suspect turned his head towards the officer's ear and came within a fraction of biting his ear off.
Yikes.
So if you're handcuffed, you're not defenseless.
Yeah.
And I've also seen handcuffed people running like gazelles through city streets. So, there was a little thing to cell block then too. And the cop turned around and he goes, "See anything?" I didn't see a damn thing. But, these are the little things that go on. And once that incident happened to me, I had like 2 or 3 years on a job. We did not have pepper spray. Tasers had not been invented yet. And shortly after that, we got pepper spray. And when tasers came around, I was trained in taser and then trained our officers in taser use. But even those aren't, it's not, they don't always work,
yeah, they're like 50%, right?
On what, the taser or?
Yeah, I mean, when I got trained in taser, I thought the instructor told me there was like a 50% fail rate.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Something like that.
It's been, it's probably been 15, 20 years now since I was trained in it. But, it was quite a shock. To be a trainer, you have to be shocked a few times. It's like, well, that's, that will knock you to your knees pretty quick. But I have seen where they fail only because it takes 2 prongs to complete the electric circuit. If one prong bounces off the ground, does not get engaged in a person's clothing or skin, then it's 100% ineffective.
Yeah, I remember one of our guys shot a guy in a big puffy down coat in the winter. And he was like,
right.
He's like, "Ow, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me?" It's like, it felt like bees were in there, but it wasn't, he wasn't getting that neural lock. He was just getting like the little sparks all over his skin.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's always I won't name the officer, but he went to tase somebody that was starting to run away, and one of the taser barbs got caught in the guy's clothing, the other one didn't. But the barb got caught in his clothing very well, and the officer didn't have good grip on his taser, so it fell out of his hand. So the suspect was sprinting down the street with the taser bouncing behind him all the way. So it's like, yeah, go write that one up.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, those. I mean, when they do work though, we had a guy who he turned. It was a domestic, and he was in a parking lot near the home, and he turned and was going to run back there. And this is a violent guy that known to us, bad dude, and he got tasered in the back, and it was just lock and then in the tar, just by morning in the cell, there was like that rotten almond smell, from all of his wounds healing on his face. And he's like, basically, what happened to me? We're like, you were bad. And then you got,
well, yeah, we had the taser. I was trained the taser. And we had not trained the department yet. So we had a couple in the locker in the watch commander's office. And again, in our old building, the old cell block, this one arrestee was defecating in his hands and then throwing the feces up and down the cell block. And there were other prisoners there as well. It's a weekend, a weekend night, Friday or Saturday night. And so the watch commander sergeant, a very good friend of mine, we're trying to mull over our options. What can we do with this guy? Because he's, it's now become a hazmat situation. We have other prisoners and ourselves in this area.
Sure.
What we're going to do. And I said, well, is there, a taser in the locker? So I'm qualified to use it. If you want, you're the sergeant, but if you want to, I'll use a taser. We'll find some Tyvek suits to put on, and we'll put in a cell block and tase them and take them out and put them in a padded cell.
Yikes.
And so we do that. We get all suited up. I got the taser. Get the typical warnings, through the bar, back up, see your hands, stop throwing shit around. And he was like, the first part of F came out, and it's like, yep, okay, he's not cooperating. Hit it with the taser. He went down like a stone. And, that click, 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 click that the taser gives. And he was like, just on the ground. And then he was moaning, and, you open the door, bum rushed him, hooked him up, threw in the padded cell. And the other prisoners didn't know because, the taser might miss a little bit of a pop when you shoot it.
Yeah.
The other prisoners are like curled up in the corners of their bunks, just like knees to their chest going, we don't know what happened to that guy, but we want no part of any of this shit these cops are doing. They want nothing. There was no phone calls, no complaints to the wall. We're backing up out of this thing. So they effed that dude up bad, carried him out of the cell, dragged him down the cell block and threw him in.
Covered in crap.
They want nothing to do with it. That was the first time we used it. And I think it's one of the first times on duty in the state of Connecticut. It was very effective. And shortly after that, the general order has to come out, and then we started training everybody else. And, it is a good tool because not everybody, not all cops are fighters. I mean, some of the best cops I know they could, sell ice cream to an Eskimo. They can talk and cajole and get confessions and admissions and witness statements, and they're great at that. But it's like, well, we got to wrestle this guy. It's like, well, they're not the guy to do that, or the girl to do that. It's just that kind of a thing.
Yeah. That's a lot of the guests that I have are they really swear by or really advocate for jiu-jitsu in academies. Just a ground game, just teaching trying to instill that in cops. Like you should do some kind of hand-to-hand stuff, just to see, like you said before, see what it's like to be winded and out of breath and, wrestling somebody. I've never been like a bar brawler or anything like my college days or anything, but I played sports. I was rough and tumble kid, never had a problem wrestling people, but I'm by no means like a, good fighter. I don't think. I think I just put my head down and run, and just muckle people if I can.
Right. Yeah.
I don't mind trying, but I definitely work, I've worked with people that can actually fight, that are like, good fighters. And that's, I love those guys standing behind you,
Yeah. No, one of the guys, he was a retired Weathersfield, Connecticut PD officer. And he's very much into the fighting and the martial arts. And to look at him was like, yeah, he's average good shape. But he's so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll do a leg sweep on you and have you upside down in a minute. He'll have you in an arm bar, an arm lock. He can twist you up in knots. And he was one of the instructors I had for one of the classes I went through. It was like, I can practice all day long and get good at it, but you'll never get to his level. He's one of those guys just don't want to. You almost want somebody to piss him off to the point where he goes nuts on him because it'd be fun to watch him, push somebody in the ball,
Yeah.
But he's very cool. He's a very level-headed guy, very, very good guy. He's like, and those are the guys, they never get that. They never go off, They always know they can just like tear somebody apart, and they never really do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Mark, can you tell us about your first hot call you responded to as a young officer? First call to get your blood going.
Yeah, that was kind of, I realized afterwards it was kind of a setup. So I was on FTO, first phase FTO, and call comes in, motorcycle crash in a highway, partial amputation. So it's like, oh, that could be, whatever, you're not quite sure what to expect, what you're going to see. So license siren, get up on a highway, and I was very, very much relieved and a little surprised to see the paramedics were already there, and loading a crash victim onto a gurney. And I did see beyond the bike was, it looked like part of a pant leg on a boot. So that part was true. But I found out later it was kind of one of those little tests you don't know you're being tested until you do it. But one of the dispatchers, and a dispatch fire as well, said, yeah, we knew what was going on up there. We want to send you up there to see how you handle it. And so I was like, well, okay, I guess I handle it all right. I didn't have to do anything,
Right.
If I was the first one there, that's a little different if you're the first one there.
Yes.
And I kind of covered that in the book. The rookie officer has to handle a handgun suicide, a large caliber handgun suicide, and she gets there moments after it happens. And again, you're in a rural PD now, so getting back to medical there fast is not really going to happen. In our PD, we're mandated to have 8 officers on the road, and all the fire department were medical qualified, so they handle medical calls.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where you get there, you see the mess, the family's there, the victim's there, and that was the first time I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it was 2 or 3 years on a job. And it was really like, geez, wow, that's just hard to process. And I can almost feel the gray coming on the edge of my eyes. Don't pass out in front of the family here.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's a bad thing to do. So, but you can feel it's just, very overwhelming sight. You're expected to do something. There's nothing on God's earth you could do.
Yep.
So you're kind of going through the motions, So I call on radio. It's like, expedite medical, move furniture out of the way so I can get in here real quick. But anyways, I got through the call, and I was fortunate that I did work with some great officers, other patrol officers who knew what I had seen. And they would check in with me every so often for the next few days, next couple of weeks, how you doing? And that's, I think that's a great role for the senior guys and women to do to the newer people, because, again, your audience that's going into this, you're going to walk into those scenes, you're going to be overwhelmed. If you're there with a partner, you're the second one to arrive, you kind of hear the radio or know what's going on. When you walk into something like that the first time, it's like, you don't know what to do.
Yeah. And
it's like, just go through your training, let it kick in and get it going. But it's funny, after that one scene, no matter what I saw after that, it never really bothered me. So
yeah.
I was, I guess, lucky in that way. But you don't know. And that's why I kind of addressed in the book, the book your officer talking to a sergeant. She goes, how do you know if you can handle it? The sergeant says, well, you have to self-analyze yourself or go to a professional or do something, but the job's not for you. If you can't handle that, turn your badge and gun and go do something else, because you're going to have those calls every once in a while, and you got to be able to deal with them.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Mark. And it's such a fine line too, between like when you're a young cop and, like you said, I had calls like that, that were like exceptionally gory or sad or, whatever. And you're just like, you might come to a point where you're like, I need to see if I can grow a callus to this, or I can't. Like, if it keeps hitting you like that, over and over, then you might know, like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, if I keep feeling like that, like, cause I went my own career, I went to a few calls I considered gnarly. And, I remember one, dead guy we worked on, and I just bought a sandwich from him. I've mentioned it before in the podcast, and I knew him. I'd never seen someone I knew dead, like freshly dead, like on the floor of a restaurant. And
it makes a big difference. If you know them, it's different.
Yeah. And I was, after the call, the sergeant's like, are you okay? I'm like, I was all cold sweats and stuff. And he's like, I go, I think I'm okay. And he goes, you look, have you looked in the mirror? You look green. And I thought he was saying, like, I look green, like new. But he's like, no, you look like white green. And I was like, oh, and I did. I looked like not well, and that call really made me think, like, geez Louise, this is real. That really got to you. And it was for the next 6 months, I felt a little tingle every time, like, rescue went off on our scanner, like for someone down or a bad accident.
Right. Yeah.
I felt a little anxiety, like, ooh, am I going to be able to handle this? And, ultimately I did, and I was fine. But young officers, like you said, you'll have that time where you're like, you're going to figure out if you can power through that or not. Because being the first guy is really overwhelming. It's really tough.
Yeah, and there was a colleague of mine, shortly after retired, a year or two after retired, he took his own life at the PD. And subsequently found out that is the accumulation of what he saw. He stayed in patrol his whole career, in and out, doing some inside work once in a while, but primarily patrol. And it was just an accumulation. And I read some book about veterans in Vietnam who had been World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam, and they couldn't take it anymore. And, the author in that book said, it's cumulative. All these things that you see and have to go through that are traumatic like that accumulate. Where the combat veteran maybe rotated in and out to his theater, for a year or 6 months. Police officers every day go out not knowing is it going to be an easy day taking barking dogs and parking complaints, or it's going to be that one was like, it's a real mess. And it's going to be 18 hours of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And you don't know when you start. And I feel very fortunate. I was able to get through it without, going cuckoo or anything. But again, my colleague, it burned him. He took his own life. And that's something that is a problem in our profession.
Absolutely. Yeah. I worked at LAPD backgrounds with a lot of retired like legends. I consider them. And one of them was a Englewood cop who was retired, and he was a Marine. And then he was an Englewood cop for years. And then he retired and came to LAPD backgrounds. And he said the thing about police work that got him was like in the Marines, when he came home, it was over. It was like, I'm home and I can kind of recover. The police thing never gave him rest. He would sit at dinner with his family and think about, I got to go in tomorrow, and it's back on. Like it never, it's like mentally you never get a break. Like you never get that, that PTSD just accumulates, and he felt like he never, you never really get a break from it. It's kind of, insane.
Yeah. Again, fortunately, I didn't have that issue, but I know some guys are pretty smart. They'll walk in the chief's office and I need an inside job for couple of years,
right? And
then they'll rotate through investigations, whatever. But you don't know what you can handle until you handle it. I was a fairly new sergeant assigned to the bureau, and my boss and very good friend. An older gentleman had died in a house fire. Part of the garage had caught fire, but the fire department put that out. They found him already deceased, shipped them to a coroner's office. And he goes, "Yeah, Mark, the postmortem's tomorrow. You're going to it." I go, "Well, it's not my case or anyone else's case. You're going to it because you haven't been an autopsy ready, have you?" I go, "No."
Oh boy.
He goes, "Good. You're going to an autopsy. Have fun." And it's like I don't really want to have to do this. They go, "No, you're going." And I was dreading it. And I got through the whole thing fine. Once it started, I found it fascinating, which I wouldn't. Yeah, I was. See, if I can get my whole career and not go on an autopsy, I'd be doing great.
Yeah, I agree.
But I had to go this one here, and I was actually amazed. And the ME, I'm asking him questions like a newbie, and he's very, very patient. And I said, why? They take the brain out and they slice it like very thin, like a meat slice. What are you looking for? Looking for any kind of cancerous things or any issues with the brain? And they did it, the way they slice it, they test it, and they go, well, he died of smoke inhalation. And show me this is the guy's lungs. They go, those little freckles, that's all it took. Nope, that's all it took. Little freckles on the lung there is what killed him.
Wow.
And so the whole process, I forget how long it takes, a couple hours. And there's one part that really kind of freaked me out because the body cavity is empty, and the assistant kind of reached inside the cavity from the inside, pulled the guy's nads out, sliced them off with a scalpel, and weighed them. And I thought, oh, I was like, I bent over myself, grabbed my own nuts, like, wow, that's kind of brutal. But it's, so I walked out of there going, I'm not quite sure what I just saw, what I just experienced. But again, anything after this is nothing,
Yeah.
And I think that's why, people say, why do you want to be a cop or anything? I did not grow up wanting to be a cop, but it's the excitement, is kind of the stuff on the edge that most people don't see.
Yeah.
And experiencing that, and that's and to me that was the reason why I did it, and for the most part enjoyed it. It's you gotta like it. If you don't like it, it's a long life, because with odd shifts and weekends, it can be difficult. So you got to enjoy it. You got to tolerate the politics. But if you like working the street and dealing with people, it's phenomenal. Yeah,
absolutely. My buddy of mine made detective, and they said he went to like the state certified class to be. I don't think you have to go, but it's like like the sergeant's class kind of thing. Like they want you to go to this class, and he went, and part of it was an autopsy, and the ME came in and he said, "Listen, it's kind of a special scenario. You guys can opt out of this if you want, because usually we have a few on the docket, but the only one we have today is a 7-year-old kid." And all the detectives were like, "Oh," Like, this is going to be our first, you know?
Yeah.
And he made it through it. But, he said a couple people were like, you know, the walls closing in. They were kind of like, I think I should leave. Where's the door? Go out, get some air.
Yeah, that's.
But yeah, I thought that gave me a little anxiety. I'm like, I don't know if I want to make detective, man. I want to do that. That sounds awful.
Yeah, no, that's what we deal with, and that's what the odd thing is always found doing. Even if it was just a natural or sudden death, is you walk to somebody's house and they got their whiteboard and the business cards and their calendar set up. You know, they plan on going for the rest of the day just like you do. And it's like, nope, today's the last mark in that calendar and you're done. So to me, it's always that it's you're living life, loving life, but it's. You're watching that again. Talking about front row, you're front row seat, seeing all this stuff that nobody else sees, and you see it over and over again.
There's no shortage of events being a police officer to make you feel grateful for what you have.
Yeah,
So many times I've gone home on a holiday or something and looked at my family and been like, I'm the luckiest man in the world. You know what I mean? Because you just went to something terrible, somebody else's life, you just walked right into it, and. You know how it is. You walk in and you smell their cooking and you see what was happening and everything was normal until this one thing happened. And then all their lives are upside down and you're in the middle of it. You know these people, and then you hang up my buddy, you hang up your stuff and you go home for the day. And my buddy always had a good comment. Like he said, he'd always say, like, if you ever feel weird, he said, just rest assured. He's like, this is not a normal job. This is not the normal job. He said, You don't go to a normal job and put Kevlar on your body. Like he said, this isn't.
Right.
So if you ever feel like this isn't normal, it's not. This is not what other people do, because you can kind of forget that when you get sucked up in the police culture. So
yeah, it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
I got another one for you here. I was going to say, did we answer your strangest or most bizarre call already, or no?
Like I said, I got a Rolodex for those things, but here's one where my partner, patrol partner, Ray and I, it's about this time of year, June morning, and sun's already up, working midnight, so it's like 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Hoping that the last hour goes by and we can just pack it in. Call comes in, domestic. It's in a government housing unit. And so we go there, and female half says he's in the bedroom. He's been doing coke all night. He's throwing shit around. That's it. So my partner and I go into the bedroom, and we're now dealing with a paraplegic, no legs, above the knee amputation. It's like, well, okay. And he's like lights in. My partner and I is like, F you, get out of here. He takes the lamp off the nightstand, throws it at us. Anything that wasn't nailed down, started throwing at us. We're like, well, okay, that's it. You're going in. So it's like, the back of your mind was a paraplegic. Don't hurt him. Well, he hops off the bed, so now his shoulder height, his head height is now our crotch height.
Oh,
geez. So he's punching us.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hey, dude, knock it off. Try to be nice to you. And he's like wailing on our nuts. It's like, all right, knock it up. So
I'm gonna have to kick this guy's ass.
We went. Yeah, so Ray and I try to wrestle this guy. He has no legs to do a leg lock or anything. It's like, well, how do we armbar this guy? Because his arms aren't staying still. His arms are 10 times stronger than ours.
Like a spider monkey.
And we wrestled from the bedroom down the hall through the kitchen, out the little hallway of the unit, and onto the front stoop of the apartment building. And
oh my gosh,
we finally hook him up.
Yeah.
And then Ray and I look at each other like, what the hell just happened? This guy's like screaming bloody murder on the ground. He's all nicked up. His boxers and so call for a medical, and then we're gonna ship you to the hospital, handcuff you to the gurney, and we'll process you later. But as well as you get done, it's like, what happened? We just got to fight with a paraplegic, and we almost lost.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Oh my goodness. I've fought some ladies before when I had the same thought. Where I'm like, I am fighting a lady, and she's really giving us run for our money. But that's
Actually, you're mentally say we should not, punch that hard, or
right.
They're not as strong as you, so go easy on. It's like, yeah, that was the wrong move.
Yeah, you get hammer fist in the face, and you're like, okay, it's on.
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
He made a choice.
Well, I imagine when you're, he's using his arms all the time. He's probably incredibly strong and has a lot of stamina in his upper body. It's.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like, wrestling, pro wrestler from the waist up. So that was kind of bizarre.
That is crazy.
That was one of the bizarre ones.
Yeah. Mark, can you tell us about like one of your more intense or terrifying calls?
Well, terrifying. Well, one time I thought we were walking into a shootout. It didn't turn out that way, but it's also covered in the book. But one of our officers was killed on line of duty. And being part of the ERT team, we were assembled pretty quickly. And then some units thought there was an empty house nearby where the killing happened. And we all load up in the van, and we're going to sweep the house. And the way the raid team went, my best friends with shotgun. He was always first. I was always second with a MP4, and on down the line. And so, back in my mind, I'm like, Mark, don't dig this up. We're going in. This guy already killed one cop. He's armed. He's desperate, and we're going to
that's stressful.
We're going to do our job right now.
Sure.
And everybody got in the van. Nobody backed down. Which I give credit to all the guys. Saying, nobody backed down. We're going to do this. And then somebody was thinking somebody snagged a K9 unit and had the K9 unit sweep the house, and the house was empty. So van turned around. We were back to our staging area. But that was probably the one time of all the drug raids, all the hot calls went on, where it's like, this guy in bad for somebody, and it better be the bad guy, not be one of my guys. And the most thing that you don't want to do, you don't want to fail your teammates. It's not so much you get hurt, but you don't want to make a mistake with one of them get hurt. So, that was one of the most intense. That whole episode, again, is covered in the book, but the intensity of that moment was something that you don't forget.
Yeah, really. The ride there, the build up of that, and then having to bottle that and hold it all together, working as a team. Dealing with the guy is capable and already did kill someone. That's about as intense as it gets in police work. Yeah,
that was. So we got through that. Again, nothing like a lot of police work. The prediction is worse than the actual call. So, but
yeah, I find that with sometimes I want to call dispatch and be like, you could have put that information out differently. Like sometimes you get calls like that call you're talking about sounds righteously intense, but you do get a lot of calls as a police officer that come in and it really does dictate how you show up to it and your whole demeanor. And the way it's put out can be real freaky, like a mass shooting. And then you get there, it's like, it's verbal domestic. I'm going to clear. It's like, what, how did this,
yeah,
how did that happen?
Yeah. I had a pretty good relationship with as a sergeant, supervising the squad, a good relationship with most of our dispatchers. And after a hot call, a complicated call, or whatever, because they were different union, different schedules, we would get off. Our evening guys would get off the road by midnight, and we had to hang around until 12:30 and then go. But the dispatchers, they were done by 11:30, and for us to have a debrief and include them, they'd have to call a supervisor. Can we have overtime for the half hour, 4 or 5 minute debrief? And there's always some squawking about that. And I would just say, I don't really care. I'm in charge of squad. I'm in charge of dispatches on this time of day. Which is not quite true, but everybody kind of bought it. And I signed their overtime slips and take the heat for it later. But to have the dispatchers know what's going on and to hear hear the phone recordings, what they hear, what they dispatch, and then what we do, and to try and get a good coordinated effort. Because often the caller is in disarray.
Yes.
They may not know exactly where they are.
Yes, Mark, let me amend my statement
help.
because you're so right. It's actually because I've taken them. We're at a small enough PD now where I have taken the call and actually gone myself. And I've been like crapping myself leaving before from the person on the phone. So the dispatch is getting frantic people almost adding or making stuff up. And when you get there, it's different. So that's true.
Yeah.
Very
So
true.
we try to coach, they try and coach, this is what we heard. And sometimes you get a recording, but this is what we heard. And that's why we said this to you guys. We're not making it up. We're not trying to get you guys amped up or overcompensate for what's going on. And so that's, we found that the debriefings to work quite well. And it also helps because sometimes there's animosity, why'd you say this? Why'd you do this? And I go, that's the best I had. I'm trying to help, the dispatcher side of it. And say, well, it didn't help. It actually kind of made things worse. So then, then there's some animosity going back and forth on who was right or who was trying to do the better job. So by getting both sides of the team together and talking about it afterwards, especially, a hot call where, an officer's injured or there's multiple casualties or whatever, it's like, let's really talk about this in debriefing because what you said over the radio and we saw when we got there were two different things. And that helps a great deal. And I don't know if, again, anybody who's an administrator out there listen to this and you have the ability to have your dispatchers ride with your officers or debrief after critical incidents with the officers, you should. Because we had one call where one of our officers was a bad domestic. An officer was shot. His K9 was stabbed. He was shot during domestic. The bad guy was shot. So a big mess. And I was just coming off shift. And so I was gathering paperwork. So there's already enough sergeants on the road. I went to dispatch and I coordinate them because I knew they were going to be very stressed out. And one dispatcher actually had to go to the ladies' room, get sick, and then come back in. And she did more. Her hands, her feet are shaking as she's working the microphone.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing to do. They hear what's going on. They hear the cops calling for help. They hear the siren, the medics going. They know what hospital people are going to. Another guy say, I got the dog. Where's the nearest vet to try and save the canine? All this stuff's going on, and they're they're very on edge as they're sitting there. They can't do anything. They're a part of it, but they can't do anything about it.
Yeah. And
that's the first time that I was in dispatch for something like that, and I said, "Holy shit, I feel so bad for these people."
Yes.
And once it all kind of got squared away, I made a point to go back to them and debrief them as to what happened, how things are going. So again, one was very long nights. The bad guy was dead. The officer and the dog both returned to duty after quite a bit of rehab. But that was when I started thinking that we have to get the dispatchers into some of these debriefs on these calls so they know what's going on and to help them relieve their stress. Because a lot of times we get so wrapped up in the investigation, especially when an officer's injured. We're so wrapped up in it, and then we kind of, 12, 18 hours after, you go home, you rung out. Well, nobody ever told dispatch what happened. Nobody's going back and telling them what actually happened or how things are going.
It's so true.
So it's like, well, what happened? They're trying to hold their breath for hours, and they don't know what's going on. So, if you're an administrator in charge of a dispatch unit or whatever, I would strongly encourage you to have your dispatchers brief and debrief with the officers on any kind of critical incident.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my job now is like I'm often in awe of how dispatch handles multiple calls at once in high stress. It's like police work.
They're magic.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen some of these dispatch. I mean, majority are female, and I don't know if it's a gender thing, but it's like watching a rock and roll pianist playing. One hand's doing this thing, another hand's doing this thing, and they're talking on the mic and they're tapping on two different screens and filling in blanks on the computer. It's like, wow, talk about multitasking. These guys and women, can do it. And somebody over their shoulder telling them, what else is going on. So,
right.
My hat's off the dispatchers. And our PD, they were kind of the redhead stepchild, always understaffed, and could always use more training. And I think the men and women in dispatch are phenomenal. They work hard.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always one that's the cranky one that no one likes that ruins their whole reputation. You have that one that's
we have. We've had a few
you
tickets
ask for
suspension
anything and they're
somebody
like,
F off over the phone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. I think it's the same everywhere. But yeah, you're right, man. That job, I tell them all the time when our dispatch wasn't regional, when I worked at a bigger place we had our own dispatch like you had, I would tell them like, I'd rather go to the call than take it. And then initiate the cards and the automated 911, the CPR over the phone and not knowing what the hell's going on. And like you said, not getting answers. Like, oh my gosh, it's brutal, man. Absolutely brutal. So Mark, do you have a heartwarming encounter that you'd like to share?
Yeah, many years ago, being brand new, community outreach is back in the early 90s. Community outreach policing was the de rigueur thing to do to reform police officers, because they're always trying to reform us, but not the criminals.
Yeah, we're back there now. We're back at community policing.
Yeah. So, anyways, me and my good friend Todd were like, you guys can be community outreach officers in a rundown part of town called Mayberry Village. So we'd get paid overtime on a grant overtime to walk the village and talk to the residents. And we thought it was kind of good because we're new, and we knew that getting information or trying to get informants was the key to being a good cop, but we didn't really know how to do it because we're too new. So we talked to everybody, and you kind of find out that the drug dealer on one corner is ratting out the drug dealer on the other corner, just so he can do his thing and you're oblivious to it. And then the drug dealer down the street is doing the same thing to the first guy. So you kind of learn off stuff being a community brand new officer. But in chatting people up and talking to people, there's one guy also named Mark in the village, and he's one of these Klingons. He sees the cops in uniform walking around, follows you around, talks to you a lot, asks a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And you just grin and bear, put your smile on, and be friendly to him. That's what you're supposed to do. And so one day, Todd and I are walking the village there, and Mark's in his little, very small front yard, and he's almost in tears. And said, dude, what's up? And he goes, well, it's the anniversary of my daughter's death. She died as a child from an accident.
Mm.
And so we try to console him and talk a little bit. And credit to my friend Todd, because later on we went to take a lunch break, and at a convenience store getting a sandwich, there's some condolence cards. You say, how about we get a condolence card for Mark? That's a good idea.
Nice.
And so we got a condolence card. We both signed it, and later on that day or next day, we see him and go, hey, just know we are thinking of you. We feel bad for you, and here's a card. That guy's face lit up. He's like, holy shit, somebody cares.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a down out neighborhood. He's a down out kind of guy. And he's like, holy shit, somebody actually cares. And again, most credit goes to my partner Todd, because he's one who thought of it. But it turned this guy's day around. He took him out of the dumps. And
that's great.
It's like, sometimes the little things you do, and you can kind of forget, because I grew up in a middle class family, both parents, and all my the guardrails were up, so the morals and the values and work ethic were all there. But you're a police officer, you're rolling into people's houses and neighborhoods where those guardrails aren't up.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget that people do grow up different than you, and
sure.
And you're just a flash in the pan. You just drive by and wave, or you talk to them. So you can make an impact for a day, and that was again my partner Todd did he initiated on that. And that's made this guy's day out of that day, made it better.
That's awesome. I love that. That's cool. Mark, one of the most popular questions I ask is this one. It's about advice for new police officers or police candidates. We have a lot of listeners that are younger. They're just getting into it, and they're thirsty for knowledge about the profession. So a guy like you who could impart some wisdom would be very valuable to them. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. No, like I said, if you got to want to talk to people, you got to want to try and help them out, because you got to do the same thing over and over again. It's kind of wear you down, and you got to have fun. Like we said earlier, you got to handle some difficult things. If you don't think you can handle it, you may want to try to do something different. But if you think you can handle it, you want to handle it, and you like talking to people, you like working the street, if you're detail oriented, it's all there. You can do. It fits almost any personality, but you have to communicate well with anybody from any social status. I mean, if there's a wealthy person or a down and out or a person under the bridge, you got to relate to them. And I didn't know any of that when I first started. I had some great, I'll throw some names out there if they're listening, but, Bruce Neese, Fran Malazzi, Leroy Bidwell, these were all veteran cops. And I was fortunate enough that they, at times, put under the wing and said, it's a better way to do it than you are, Mark. Talk to them, sit down, take your time, and really get to know their side of the coin. And that's a great thing. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to take your time. And know that when you walk in there, as any veteran does, the evening shift, midnight shift, weekend shift is fun at first, but when you start having families, it's a stressor.
Yeah.
And you don't know how much the stress is going to be until you get into it. So, know that's down the road. And to any cop that's out there, even if they've been around for a while, get some rank, get some experience, any profession, get training. No matter how much work you do on the street or as an investigator, always get more training because that makes you more promotable. It makes you a better officer, detective, or sergeant. And I don't know, just, if you want to do it, do it. I mean, they're screaming for people. When I applied for the job almost 30 years ago, it was, 400 people for 10 spots. Now they can't fill 10 spots to get, 3 people applying.
Yeah.
And the quality is sometimes is questionable. So if you want to do it, and you think you got it, then go for it. I mean, it's rewarding. If you're from the Northeast, compensation is pretty good. I know down south in some of the rural areas of the country, it's not. But
right,
the Northeast, you can do a pretty good job, make a pretty good living out of it.
Let me ask you a question for myself, Mark. Get it personal here. Get some personal advice from you when I got you on the line. So I'm a guy that's been in law enforcement for probably about 14 years now. Took a little break in between. All my friends and peers now are sergeants or detectives or lieutenants or whatever. I'm back in patrol, but I never applied to be a sergeant or anything like that. I always kind of liked being a patrol, just get in your car with your duty bag and it's just you don't have to worry about much. But, I'm 41 now and the supervisor idea has been thrown at me before, recently, like, hey, would you be interested type of thing. What's good advice for a guy leaving patrol going to like sergeant? Or just what comes to your mind right away?
What comes to mind, like anybody else, there are two kinds of supervisors. Those who get involved and know what's going on, and those who fill out the sheets and don't want to know. In general speaking, that was kind of what you had going.
Right.
And then when I was a new sergeant going to classes that were required to take, they go around the room, how you like being a new sergeant? And they go, most guys, like, all they do is fill out the overtime book, make phone calls, fill the overtime book, taking the private job calls. And so it's not like you say, you're a patrolman, you're hopping your cruiser, you got your duty bag, and you're your own boss. And you can, go out there and, meet and greet people, or if you're not feeling good, just, sit back and do words of friends and wait for the end of the shift, and you can kind of do your own thing.
Right.
Once you're a boss, other people's problems become your problems, on-the-job problem, not the personal ones. And so, how do I investigate this? How do I investigate that? Should we do this? Should we not do that? And so, you're part motivator, you're part psychologist, you're part parent. All those things come into play. And you're going to be the bad guy sooner or later. Everybody that became a new sergeant after me, I gave him advice and said, you're going to discover that some of the officers you work with are superstars and never get credit for it. And the ones you think are superstars have been sandbagging all the way along. Because you read all the reports, you see the investigations, you sign off on all the warrants, and it's like, wow, this guy or gal is really rocking it. And they're under the radar, and just like doing your thing. Meanwhile, somebody else is always like, a cheerleader, and then you read the report, the warrant, and you go, I'm not quite sure you got probable cause here. You might want to go back and reinvestigate this or do some more interviews.
Right.
So it's so you get you get to really see some of that. But one of my favorite cops, he's a super aggressive, super smart guy. One of the best officers I've ever worked with, patrol wise. And I always say you should become a sergeant because I think you can train up a squad to your work ethic and your experiences. Mm-hmm. And he took the test, he passed, he got his stripes, and then 6 months later turned back in and goes, I don't want to be responsible for the people. I mean, the parent part, you hear the complaining, why has he got this call and I don't get this call? I should get this case. Why do I have to go back and re-interview these people? It's like, well, you become the taskmaster. It's like, this is because you want to do a quality case here, right? Yes. Then you have to go out and re-interview these people and get some better statements because the court's not going to like this. You have to go out there and do it. So again, you become a taskmaster to parent, but at the same time, I found it rewarding when at one time my squad, me and other Sergeant Don were pretty much running the show on evenings, and I go through stats once in a while, and for on-site arrests, closed investigations, closed warrants, and closed cases by arrest. We were leading all the other squads.
Nice.
It's, we had, 3 different shifts, and each shift is split into 2 different squads. So 6 squads were leading all, 6 squads were doing it. And I like to think is because, Don and I was like, go out there and do your thing. We want you to work hard. If you have a question, call us. We'll show up. If it's one of those legal things, we're kind of stretching the bounds of the Constitution. Well, we're there, and if something snaps in our face, then our name's on it. We were there, and we'll take the fall for it, not you, because we're there. We got the stripes, and you followed our rules. So, right. Once they trusted it, we would take the heat for anything going on, whether it was been some general orders rules or whatever. It's like, well, and they went out and they loved it. It's like let's go out there, and again, it's not politically correct, and I'm sure who's gonna hear your podcast here, but Don and I would say, okay, let's get a car chase, a foot chase, and a dog bite. Let's go out and, shake the trees, find some criminals.
True.
And they went out there and did that. And that's, it's an evening shift, and they were mostly younger officers, and that's what they wanted to do. Other shifts are like, what can I get through the next 9 hours without having to do much? It's like, it's a long day for not doing much.
Yeah.
So, but it is a big thing. You got to. I know some detectives that took sergeant, and they said, as a detective, again, you run your own show for the most part, and then as a sergeant, you're babysitting other people, trying to get them to run their own show. And it's the old adage, 10% of the 10% of your workers occupy 9% of your time because you're just not doing what you're supposed to do. It's always the same. It's always the same guy or gal that's making a mistake. You're always like, I told you 100 times not to do that. Right. You don't interview a juvenile without the parent there. And so this warrant's invalid. Go back and do it again. So it's, those things there. Whereas the other 9% of the squad are doing a thing just fine without really a need for you to be there. But so that gets frustrating. Just dealing with co-workers who don't want to step up.
Isn't it funny working with people? Like for me, whenever if I was ever corrected by a supervisor, I always found it like embarrassing, and I was always like, "Ugh, I'm never doing that again." You know what I mean? I'm doing it that way, and then to see someone to keep doing it, like it's almost like you almost admire them. You're like, wow, you don't care, do you? Like it's like either you don't care or you really just don't remember. To me, that was always so bizarre.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part about being a sergeant, a range supervisor, is you do deal with people who don't care. Yeah. I mean, police work's like any other job. You're going to have that, in the Marine Corps, we call it, the 10% shippers. Those people, they just don't care. They don't want to be there. They don't want to do anything.
They're in the union. You're not going to touch them.
But the union, and the union has their own set of rules. It doesn't dovetail with the PD sometimes. So, it's so as a sergeant, you're dealing more with that stuff. But if you have a good in RPD, it was patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant ran the whole show for a squad. If you have a good lieutenant on top of you that backs you up and lets you kind of run your own thing and answers questions that you need without being wishy-washy. I thought being a sergeant was, at first it was kind of a drag. it was evening shift, weekends, working with some people who didn't want to be there. But the last 3 or 4 years I was on was a patrol sergeant, and loved it. They had a great squad, a great boss, and kind of went out on top. And that was the most fun part. Besides doing narcotics work, that was the most fun. But the last 3 or 4 years with my squad was phenomenal.
So my dad said he was like senior sergeant for years, like first sergeant, and then he became lieutenant, and he was like hated it. He did it for like 3 years at the end of his career, and he's like, man, he's like, that sergeant's job was so sweet. And then I took the stupid lieutenant's job, and it was like, all of a sudden he's out of the union, fighting everybody all the time. He's like, this job sucks. Yeah, and again, I know you're a PD, your dad's PD, but when you get to be lieutenant, then it's like, well, yeah, you become the heavy. They rotate him through IA, and it's like you gotta, some guys have to be disciplined heavily, some guys gotta be fired. Yep. So yeah, it's an extra chunk of change in your pocket, but sometimes that benefit's not worth it. Yep. But again, I did my whole career working the street or investigations. I didn't do too much inside work, so it's where I wanted to be. And again, I was your age when I made sergeant, and it's kind of good because as you age out of this job, I mean, you're not going to be 55, 60 years old chasing people down. Right. You feel like working the street. So being a sergeant is kind of easy way. Still a little less of the grunt work. So, for me, it worked out well. I had about 10, 11 years on when I got my stripes, and we finished up in the last 10 years. I love it. Mark Andrew Kelly, awesome interview, man. Thank you so much. Front row seat. I can already tell. Probably such a fun read. I can't wait to read it myself. Can you tell everybody best place to get it? Best place to get it is Amazon, of course, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, and Books A Million. Excellent. I will, in the show notes, I'll link that, and I'll link it on our website, and I'll link it also on the Facebook page, and so everybody can get it. And do you have social media that you're putting out there? I am on Facebook under my full name, Mark Andrew Kelly, and also there's a website, acopstory.com. So awesome. Leave comments either way on Facebook or the website. It's a good way to reach me. Perfect. Thank you for coming on, sir. Hey, thank you, Steve. Good talk. Be safe. I'll talk to you. Hang on the line for 1 sec. I'm going to end the recording. Sure. Hey, guys. Thank you for listening to episode number 77 with Mark Andrew Kelly. Awesome interview. I had a lot of fun. East Hartford, Connecticut, man. Crazy place. Hartford in general is like the Wild West. People don't know that, but Connecticut, pretty rough streets there. We had a guy transfer from Cape Cod to Hartford. 6 months was in a huge shootout. So it's a crazy place. Mark had some great stories. His book sounds awesome. Thank you for listening. Thank you for rating and reviewing. You guys have really come out. I got over 500 reviews now. That's really helping with whatever algorithm that iTunes uses. So please keep rating and reviewing. I'm still getting enough reviews now that once in a while I do get like a terrible 1-star review and people say nasty things, and that's just the way it is. If you're running any kind of conservative podcast or police positive podcast, that's how you know when you're getting a lot of eyes, is when people start hating it. So the best thing you could do for the show is just to go on and give it a 5-star review and write a little review saying you like it. I really appreciate that. And go to thingspolicec.com. If you really love the show and appreciate the content, that you can donate to the podcast there. And also, if you want to be a guest, always looking for guests, guys. thingspolicec.com. You can scroll down, click on Be a Guest. Quick synopsis. I don't need a lot. Just, was a cop this many years, had these specialties. You can just put like bad car crash, suicide, crazy turkey, whatever you have, just give me a little bit and I'll get it in my email and I'll have you come on. And I can't stress enough that this podcast has 77 interviews now, and I have everything from rural police to big city, and people love all of it. People love to hear a police officer talk about their work. It's all fascinating, and everybody has stories. So don't hesitate. Don't be afraid. Submit to the show if you're a police officer and you feel like you want to come on and tell some stories, okay? Thank you again, and I'll see you guys next time.